It was a cold November morning when the rain began to fall. Not the gentle kind that whispers through the trees, but the heavy, relentless kind that soaks your bones and makes the world feel like it's drowning. In a quiet alley behind a shuttered bakery on Elm Street, nestled between soggy cardboard boxes and a rusted dumpster, a small trembling shape huddled against the damp brick wall. His fur, once golden like summer wheat, was now matted with mud and rain, his ribs visible beneath his thin coat. He was no more than a year old, but his eyes held the weary wisdom of an old soul who'd already seen too much. Before we continue Rusty's journey, if this story already touched your heart, drop a heart in the comments and tell us where you're listening from. We read every single one. He didn't have a name. Not yet. To the world, he was just another stray, another problem to be swept away. But to himself, he was hope, stubborn, quiet, unshakable hope. He'd been abandoned 3 weeks ago by the only human he'd ever known, a man with tired eyes and a voice that used to sing him lullabies. The man had left him tied to a lamppost outside a gas station with nothing but a half-empty bag of kibble and a frayed red leash. "Stay," he'd said, and so he did. For 2 days, he waited. Rain came, cars passed. People glanced, but never stopped. On the third morning, hunger gnawed sharper than fear, and he chewed through the leash. Freedom tasted like wet pavement and loneliness. Now, shivering in the alley, he lifted his head at the sound of footsteps. Not the hurried click of business shoes or the careless shuffle of teenagers, but slow, deliberate steps. He tucked himself deeper into the shadows, ears flat, tail tucked. But then, a soft voice. "Hey there, little guy." A woman crouched at the mouth of the alley, holding a steaming paper cup in one hand and a folded blanket in the other. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, her coat too thin for the weather. But her eyes were warm like sunlight through a window on a winter day. She didn't reach for him. She just sat on the wet pavement, set the cup down, and unwrapped a plain turkey sandwich from wax paper. "I know you're scared," she said gently, "but I've been where you are." "Not exactly, but close enough." She broke off a piece of bread and tossed it gently toward him. It landed a foot away. He didn't move. Not at first, but hunger won. He crept forward, nose twitching, eyes never leaving hers. She stayed perfectly still. When he finally snatched the bread and retreated, she smiled. A small, tired smile that somehow made the rain feel less cold. That was how it began. Her name was Clara. She worked nights at a veterinary clinic 2 blocks away, studying to become a vet tech during the day. She lived in a tiny apartment above a laundromat, paid for with overtime shifts and ramen noodles. She had no savings, no car, and a mountain of student debt. But she had a heart too big for her circumstances. And that heart had just found its newest resident. She didn't take him home that night. She came back the next evening with a clean towel, a bowl of warm broth, and a soft dog bed she'd borrowed from the clinic. Night after night, she returned. Slowly, he began to trust. He'd meet her at the alley entrance, tail giving the faintest wag. She called him Rusty, not because of his color, but because he reminded her of an old key she'd found in her grandmother's attic. Rusted, forgotten, but still capable of unlocking something precious. On the 7th night, she brought a leash. "Ready?" she asked, holding it out like an offering. He sniffed it, then her hand, then stepped forward and let her clip it on. No resistance, no fear, just quiet surrender. As they walked away from the alley, he glanced back once, then turned his face toward the streetlights, toward her, toward something new. Home was a single room with peeling wallpaper and a radiator that clanked like a heartbeat. But to Rusty, it was paradise. A real bed, fresh water, a human who spoke to him like he mattered. Clara bathed him in the kitchen sink, humming as she worked the grime from his fur. She checked his ears, his paws, his teeth, gentle, thorough, full of care. "You're healthy," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "Just hungry for love." She named him officially that night, Rusty James. James after her late father, who'd always said every creature deserved a proper name. That first week, Rusty barely left her side. He followed her to the bathroom, slept curled against her back, woke her with soft nudges when nightmares came. He didn't bark, didn't chew shoes, just existed in quiet devotion, as if trying to repay her kindness with every breath. Clara enrolled him in obedience classes using her employee discount. He learned sit, stay, come, not because he had to, but because he wanted to please her. The instructor called him the gentlest dog I've ever met. Clara just smiled and scratched behind his ears. Months passed. Seasons turned. Rusty grew into his body, strong, sleek, eyes bright with life. He became a familiar sight at the clinic, trotting beside Clara in the mornings, waiting patiently while she studied, greeting every patient with a calm, reassuring presence. Kids loved him. Even the grumpiest cats seemed to tolerate his quiet energy. But life, as it often does, had other plans. It started with a cough, just a small one, late one night. Clara thought it was allergies. But then Rusty began to slow on their walks. He'd stop halfway down the block, panting heavily, tongue lolling. His appetite waned. One morning, he didn't greet her at the door. Panic seized her. She rushed him to the clinic, bypassing the waiting room, straight to Dr. Patel, the senior vet and her mentor. Dr. Patel examined him thoroughly, her expression growing graver with each passing minute. X-rays, blood work, an echocardiogram. He has dilated cardiomyopathy, Dr. Patel said gently, her hand resting on Clara's shoulder. His heart is enlarged. It's not pumping efficiently, Clara's world tilted. But he's young. He was healthy. He was, Dr. Patel agreed, but this condition can appear suddenly in certain breeds. We'll start medication, diuretics, ACE inhibitors, pimobendan. It'll help. But Clara, this is serious. His prognosis? It's guarded. The words hung in the air like smoke. Clara sank into a chair, Rusty leaning against her leg, unaware of the storm raging inside her. She looked down at him, his trusting eyes, his soft fur, the way his tail still thumped weakly against the floor despite his exhaustion. This dog had saved her as much as she'd saved him. On the loneliest nights of her life, he'd been her anchor. Now she had to be his. She took a deep breath. What do we do? They fought. Every single day. Medication twice a day, precisely measured. Low-sodium diet she cooked herself. Short, gentle walks. Weekly checkups. Clara rearranged her entire life around his care. She took on extra shifts to afford the meds. She slept on the floor beside his bed so she could monitor his breathing. She read every study, joined online support groups, called specialists across the state. And Rusty? He fought too, with a quiet courage that left everyone in awe. He took his pills without fuss. He wagged his tail when she came home, even on days when standing seemed too much. He still greeted children at the clinic, still rested his head on the knees of grieving pet owners, still offered his silent, steadfast love to anyone who needed it. One afternoon, 6 months after the diagnosis, Clara found him lying in his favorite spot by the window, watching sparrows flit between branches. She sat beside him, stroking his fur. "You're doing so good, Rusty James," she whispered. He turned his head and licked her hand, slow, deliberate, full of meaning. That night, she dreamed of the alley, of rain and cardboard, and a trembling pup with eyes too old for his face. But in the dream, she didn't find him. He found her. He walked out of the shadows and placed his paw in her hand, as if to say, "I've been waiting for you." She woke with tears on her cheeks, and Rusty's warm body pressed against hers. Time became both a gift and a thief. Every sunrise was a victory. Every sunset, a quiet plea for one more day. Clara stopped counting the months. She started counting moments. The way he sighed when she scratched his chest. The sound of his collar jingling as he padded to his water bowl. the soft snore he made when he fell asleep on her feet. Then came the day she knew was coming, but hoped wouldn't come so soon. Rusty refused his morning meds. He stood by the door, tail limp, eyes dull. When she knelt to coax him, he leaned into her, but didn't lift his head. His breathing was shallow, rapid. She called Dr. Patel immediately. At the clinic, they hooked him to oxygen. His heart rate was erratic. Fluid filled his lungs. Dr. Patel met Clara's eyes. "He's in heart failure, Clara. We can hospitalize him, try to stabilize him, but it might only buy hours, or we can let him go peacefully." Clara's hands trembled as she stroked Rusty's head. He looked at her, really looked at her, as if trying to tell her something. She remembered the alley, the rain, the moment he chose to trust her. She remembered every walk, every nap, every silent understanding between them. She remembered how he'd healed her broken places without ever saying a word. She took a deep, shuddering breath. "He's had enough," she said softly. "He's been so brave." Dr. Patel nodded, eyes glistening. "I'll give you some time." They moved him to a quiet room with soft blankets and warm light. Clara lay on the floor beside him, cradling his head in her lap. She whispered all the things she'd never said out loud. How proud she was of him, how grateful, how he'd changed her life in ways she couldn't explain. She told him it was okay to rest, that he didn't have to fight anymore, that she'd be okay because he'd taught her how to be. Rusty's breathing slowed. His eyes never left hers. And then, with one last soft sigh, like the whisper of wind through autumn leaves, he let go. Silence filled the room. Heavy, sacred. Clara held him for a long time, tears falling onto his fur. She didn't try to stop them. Grief, she realized, was just love with nowhere to go. Weeks passed. The apartment felt too quiet, the bed too big, the walks too empty. But Clara kept going. She returned to the clinic. She studied harder. She volunteered at the local shelter, helping other scared, forgotten dogs find their Claires. One rainy afternoon, much like the day they'd met, she stood in the alley behind the bakery. It hadn't changed much. Same dumpster, same damp bricks. But now she saw it differently. Not as a place of abandonment, but as a place of beginning. As she turned to leave, a soft whimper caught her ear. She froze. There, beneath the same rusted dumpster, huddled a tiny black and white pup, shivering, wide-eyed, impossibly small. He looked up at her with the same weary hope Rusty once had. Clara knelt slowly, her heart pounding. She didn't reach for him. She just sat on the wet pavement, unwrapped the sandwich she'd brought for lunch, and broke off a piece of bread. "Hey there, little guy," she said softly. The pup hesitated. Then, step by trembling step, he crept forward, and in that moment, Clara understood. Love doesn't end. It ripples. It echoes. It finds new vessels, new hearts, new alleys in the rain. She didn't know this pup's name yet, but she knew his story had just begun, and she'd be there for every chapter. Because that's what Rusty had taught her, that every lost soul deserves a chance, that kindness is never wasted, that even in the darkest alleys, hope can bloom, if someone's willing to sit in the rain and wait. She smiled through her tears as the pup took the bread from her hand. "Welcome home," she whispered. And somewhere, in the quiet spaces between heartbeats, a golden dog with wise old eyes wagged his tail in approval. If Rusty's journey moved you, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and tap the bell so you never miss another emotional story. We post new tales every week that celebrate love, loss, and the quiet heroes, both human and furry, who change our lives. Thank you for watching, and remember, kindness always finds its way home. Dogs truly are the most loyal companions in our lives. What did you think of this heartwarming story? Let us know in the comments. Like the video and share it with your friends. Subscribe to our channel for daily emotional dog stories. Turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Click here to watch the next story of love, loyalty, and the incredible bond we share with our paw-some friends.